There is a book here called The Awakening of Intelligence by Krishnamurti. It's about his famous saying about the observer and observed. And I'm going to read the sentences and then relate that to what I've been talking about in terms of the two universes, and also possibly about Zen and the Shin Buddhism and why there's something in common. By knowing something in common doesn't transfer or penetrate into the message that he's trying to get at, but at least it will give us a sense of what we are talking about and why this subject has some interesting meaning if we get to know. Otherwise, as you can imagine, Krishnamurti is not so religious, yet he was talking the same language with his own way, whereas other people are talking about their language from the Shin Buddhism or Zen or any others, Meister Eckhart, another example, or Sufis and so forth. But it's interesting to know why the subject is not so easy if we use your mind, but there's a way to penetrate if we are understanding what this is about. So again, the point is observer is observed and what it means. And let me read some of the sentences in this page. There's a questioner questioning and then Krishnamurti answering. The questioner says, the last time we were together, you were telling us that if someone has a painful experience and it is not fully faced or is avoided, it goes into the unconscious as a fragment. How are we to free ourselves from these fragments of painful and fearful experiences so that the past won't have a grip on us? Of course, you can change the sentence to the future, and the future can grip you and how you get away from it if the future is something you cannot penetrate through. But anyway, for that question, Krishnamurti answers, yes, that is conditioning. How does one free ourselves from this conditioning? How do I free myself from my conditioning of the culture in which I was born? First, I must be aware that I'm conditioned. Not somebody telling me that I'm conditioned. You understand the difference? Then he says, to be so aware means that I'm not trying to go beyond the conditioning. So he's talking about awareness. He's talking about not trying. So just be aware, not trying to be free of the conditioning. I must see it as it actually is, not bring in another element, such as wanting to be free of it, because this is an escape from actuality. I must be aware. Now, what does that mean? To be aware of my conditioning totally, not partially, means my mind must be highly sensitive, mustn't it? Otherwise, I can't be aware. To be sensitive means to observe everything very, very closely, the colors, the quality of the people or the things around me. I must also be aware of what actually is without any choice. Can you do that? And later he says that to look at the tree without knowledge, without the time quality, does not mean identifying yourself with the tree, but observe the tree so attentively that the boundaries of time don't come into it at all. The boundaries of time come in only when you have knowledge about the tree. Look at the tree or flower, the cloud, or the wife or the husband without the image. If you can do that, then you can observe your conditioning totally. If you can look at tree or whatever without the image, you can observe your conditioning totally. Then you can look at it with a mind that is not spotted by the past, and therefore the mind itself is free of conditioning. He says, the observer is the knowledge. Before that he says, I look as an observer looking at the observed, myself as the observed, and the observer looking at it. The observer is the knowledge, is the past, is time, the accumulated experiences. He separates himself from the thing observed. Now to look without the observer, that is with knowledge. You do this when you are completely attentive. Do you know what it means to be attentive? Don't go to school to learn to be attentive. To be attentive means to listen without any interpretations, without any judgment, just listen. When you're also listening, there is no boundary, there is no self. There is no you listening. There is only a state of listening. I think you can change listening to watching, tasting, whatever, 500. So when you observe your conditioning, the conditioning exists only in the observer, not in the observed. When you look without the observer, without the me, his fears, his anxieties, and all the rest of it, then you will see you enter into a totally different dimension. So this is the end of page 89, 88 to 89, the awakening of intelligence. He's telling observer, observed, awareness, and go into it without the me. So that is the moment when you don't have me, meaning there's no knowledge, no mind, so to speak, about the me and whatever. But the mind has to be attentive, be aware, without the clouds of the words and the logic. And he's just telling, you have to try it. That's the ending of this talk he had in New York, April 24, 1991. What does that mean? He's not giving the answer. He's providing the process of finding the intelligence or wisdom by not using the knowledge, concept, logic, which we have in our mind, but throw away. Don't learn any of that, but learn or be able to observe, be aware. So if I relate to my term, or many people may say the same thing, what does mean the moment of awareness and attentive to listen or watch or taste or feel whatever is happening? You're like a little baby before your mind start to clouds. Crowded thought would prevent you from looking as a little baby, but all colorful, colored and filtered by the mind. That A and B, good and bad, right and wrong, ugly and beautiful, more money or less money, and all of that. That's the conditioning that we learn after the birth, and we get conditioned to live our life because the parents told you and the friends told you and all the society is functioning with that. But if you play the game as you should or you would, then the attentiveness, the clear mind that you've got when you're born is all filtered and you get busy with the mind. Therefore, that's the conditioning that he was talking about. Therefore, the observer is observed. What is that? Observer, he says, is knowledge. Forget about knowledge. And who is observing? So that, to me, is the discussion I had with two universes. There's a me universe, or the mind universe, and there's nature's way, the universe of everything's happening with the law of nature. So that's a relationship, two universes, how they can relate or not. But to be able to relate, the mind, busy mind, or the habitual pattern has to go. And when the habitual pattern, the karma, whatever is gone, and be aware, you find the resonance. The mind is not occupied with those. And the me thinking and dualistic thinking is going to be gone, and there's only pure awareness in the now. Then you see the observer is observed. So two universes kind of have that relationship of a paradox doesn't exist anymore because you're not using the mind in the manner to make judgment for everything, but let that judgment become a wisdom when your mind is clear. So forget about the thought, and that's the practice of meditation, and that's the practice of Zen. And with that is the access to the unknown, because known is the world of your mind, unknown is the law of the universe. You cannot describe that, but with the connection with that, where you have lots of memories, the images, whatever happened in the past, without the bias, so that those memories can be free, because the mind is not grabbing them, and the conditioning is not as strong because of the penetrating attentiveness you give. And whatever the pop-up of the thought, you let go, that's meditation. Then samadhi, the emptiness of mind, and the clarity, awareness, is going to be there. That's the Chila Samadhi Panya, samadhi, awareness, calm and quiet mind. And with that, whatever the reason, that's the law of nature, the wisdom pops up. It's not mind bringing the wisdom, because mind has limitation. That I said many times in many videos, but we don't know it. We only know it when we cannot go any further, because the mind gets consumed. As much as at my awakening experience, I was trying to get away from the pain. More you want to get away, the binding gets tighter. So you have to let go. Same old story you heard many times, people talk about it. As it is, accept as it is, let go of yourself, no self, and various videos. And many others have posted and talking about the same thing. I'm just pointing the Krishnamurti's, those 2 pages I found just sitting on the table. I read this 25 years ago, and now looking at it again, and how different I am from the time when I read, and how I am interpreting. Interpreting is a dangerous thing to do. Just be aware. It's much better, because when you start to interpret, another interpretation of the interpretation start to happen. Then you go back to the mind game and you're lost. Well, you may be not lost in the mind, because what mind can do with whatever the memory, so they can play with it. But it's not like living. You're just playing the game with the words and logic. That's not life. Connect to the root. And that's what the Zen meditation and is talking about. And pointing, not telling you, because you are the one to find the solution, what that dimension that Krishnamurti talked about at the end. Go and inquire yourself. What kind of a dimension that is, what kind of a world can you find? That's always is his questioning. And when I just touch on the Shin Buddhism, they're talking about the same thing from using the different words. Myokoni, simple idea. Let go of yourself and let the Amida Buddha to take over. What does that mean? Amida Buddha, take over, please. And at that moment, you let go of yourself, which means emptiness. Nothing your mind can do. But you need to get to the point to let go. As much as I went through the awakening, I have to let go. That was painful because the mind habit is conditioning us to use it. Maybe nobody wants to go through this process to open up, but that is the point of observer and observed. I use the mirror mind, and so many expressions to go through it, either from Zen, Shin Buddhism, Myokoni, and thousands of pages in Daisetsu's book. And here comes the Krishnamurti's book, which, how many pages is this one? 540 pages or something like that. And that this is at the beginning part, and I don't know, I'm going to pick up some other pages to look at and see how I may relate to. But the point of this video is to have some perspective as to how we use the mind and what is the meaning of awareness or spirituality or even religious expression. And those can be contaminated because of the dogma and the habit that goes with it. So Krishnamurti is letting go, forget about the religion. I'm saying that, okay, religion, if you understand the clarity of what it is, as much as Eckhart Tolle talks about and Daisetsu talks about, given whatever the tool we got and the organization, but revisit Christianity, Zen, Shin Buddhism, whatever that is, and that the root is this essence of intelligence that can come out, and together with it is the compassion. Maybe the last point that I was thinking this morning was about the proverb in French, which says, those who know everything would forgive all. It's kind of like Christ saying, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing. Maybe saying it the opposite way. But to know all is like a wisdom, which is basically impossible, but to know all, that's Amida Buddha can do, or Buddha can do, is to forgive, which is compassion. So the wisdom and compassion has the pair relationship if you really get to the root of it. But it's just a talk. Just a talk and listening doesn't do any good. So as Krishnamurti pointed, listening, getting the perspective, understanding is good, but it's just opening the door. But from there on, someone has to open the door and go into the other universe and relate to that. And nobody can do. No matter how many pages you read it, if you don't have the sense of opening up, which is like a no mind, appreciation. Appreciation may come later, but no mind and throwing yourself, and let that idea, observe and observed, be one. As much as Eckhart I is talking the same thing, which I mentioned in the other video. So many people continue to do this. They prepare the setting, but the one who goes through is each individual. And it's worth it. But it takes some mental discipline and attitude, and it's kind of like hitting the wall and opening the door. gradually you may crack open and then bang. Can come in a sudden manner or gradual manner to relate to the other universe. And then we may understand. And then the life become more as like following the law of nature, natural, liberated. Thank you.